2 counts of first-degree charges, a special circumstance attached, and the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. Yet when Nick Reiner finally appeared in court, nothing about him matched the weight of those charges. He sat quietly behind glass. No visible reaction, no shaking hands, no emotional outburst. When the judge asked if he was willing to waive his right to a speedy arraignment, Nick answered with just 3 words. "Yes, Your Honor." That was it. No plea, no explanation, no visible emotion. And it's that calm, not the charges, that has people uneasy. Because calm like that raises questions, and it forces people to ask something uncomfortable. What does that calm actually mean? In cases like this, calm behavior is often misunderstood. Some people see it and assume guilt, others see it and assume detachment, but neither assumption is automatically true. Psychologists have long noted that extreme shock can cause emotional shutdown. It's sometimes described as the mind going into protection mode, flattening emotion to survive overwhelming stress. That can look like blank expressions, limited speech, mechanical responses. It doesn't mean the person isn't processing what's happening. It means they may be processing too much all at once. And that's important here because just hours before that courtroom appearance, cameras captured Nick Reiner behaving in a way that felt equally controlled. Surveillance footage from a Los Angeles gas station has now become one of the most closely watched pieces of evidence in this case. In the video, Nick Reiner walks into the store alone. He's wearing jeans and a jacket. A red backpack hangs over his shoulder. He doesn't rush inside. He doesn't appear frantic. He calmly walks the aisles, eventually heading to the back coolers to grab a drink. As he waits in line, he looks around the store several times. Not panicked, not frantic, just aware. Minutes later, after leaving the store, another surveillance camera captures law enforcement arresting him across the street near Exposition Park. There's no resistance, no struggle, no attempt to flee. For investigators, this footage matters. Not because of what it shows him doing, but because of how ordinary it looks. And that's where the questions begin. The gas station video doesn't show aggression. It doesn't show panic. It doesn't show urgency. But it also doesn't show relief. There's no sign of someone trying to disappear. No frantic phone calls, no visible breakdown. To investigators, footage like this often becomes a reference point, not proof, not a conclusion, but a behavioral snapshot. It gives prosecutors and defense teams something to analyze frame by frame: body language, pace of movement, awareness of surroundings, and it becomes even more significant when placed into the larger timeline. Because there's a stretch of time that still hasn't been publicly explained. According to prosecutors, Rob and Michelle Reiner were fatally attacked in the early morning hours of December 14th. Their bodies were discovered later that afternoon. Nick Reiner wasn't there when police arrived. That creates a gap, a long one. Where was Nick during that time? Who, if anyone, saw him? And what was happening in the hours before his arrest that evening? So far, those questions remain unanswered. And unanswered questions are often where cases turn, not in dramatic moments, but in quiet stretches of time no one can yet account for. Investigators are almost certainly working backward through that gap, because the night before may hold clues to what followed. According to sources familiar with the investigation, there was an argument involving Nick Reiner and his parents the night before their deaths. It reportedly happened at a Conan O'Brien Christmas party. Witnesses described Nick as withdrawn that night, quiet, detached from the rest of the room. He didn't engage much, he didn't socialize, and his appearance reportedly stood out. It's important to be clear here, these are reports, not courtroom facts, but investigators don't include details like this casually. Behavior. The night before matters in major cases because it helps establish emotional context. not guilt, but state of mind. And that context followed Nick Reiner into the courtroom the next day. Nick Reiner's first court appearance lasted only minutes. He was seated behind glass in an enclosed area reserved for people in custody. Cameras were not allowed to show him directly. He wore a thick, one-piece custody garment. He spoke only once. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge ordered him held without bail. No plea was entered. No arguments were made. His arraignment was scheduled for January 7th, but outside the courtroom, his attorney used language that quietly shifted how many people interpreted the case. Nick Reiner's attorney, Alan Jackson, addressed reporters after the hearing. He called the deaths a devastating tragedy. Then he added something else. He said there were very complex and serious issues associated with the case. That phrase stood out. Alan Jackson has defended some of the most high-profile and controversial figures in recent history. When an attorney like that chooses words so carefully, it's often a signal. Not a defense, not a claim, but a direction the case may take. Shortly after, prosecutors acknowledged that Nick Reiner had undergone medical screening and that mental health could come up during future hearings, not as an excuse, not as a conclusion, but as part of the broader picture. And that picture includes a struggle few people discuss publicly until now. In 2015, Nick Reiner co-wrote the film Being Charlie, directed by his father. The movie was loosely inspired by Nick's own experiences. A producer who worked closely with the family described the project as deeply personal, more like a family effort than a standard film. He said everyone involved hoped Nick would overcome what he was dealing with. After the film, Nick disappeared from the next project they were building. The producer said he kept expecting Nick to return when he was ready. Now, that hope has been replaced with grief, and the family left behind has made one final request. Nick Reiner's siblings, Jake and Romy, released a statement asking for privacy. They described their loss as unimaginable. They asked for speculation to be tempered with compassion, and they asked for their parents to be remembered for the lives they lived, not just the way they died. As for what happens next, everything now points to January 7th. That's when Nick Reiner will be formally arraigned. Prosecutors have not yet said whether they will pursue the most severe penalties available, noting they will consider multiple factors, including the wishes of the family. Until then, the questions remain. What does the calm really mean? Why that gas station stop? And what lies inside that unexplained stretch of time? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to stay updated as this case continues to unfold, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this story is far from over.